Hey everybody, this is Perch. So a few days ago, I did a video on solicitations, and it made the comment that we're seeing the solicitations hitting a lot earlier, and this was a problem for comics, and kind of talked a little bit about the reasons why and everything else. Unfortunately, I had about half information I felt I could share, and another half information I felt I couldn't share, and it didn't come together fairly well. It did have the immediate reaction of the people who are looking for problems in comics, ran with it, and unfortunately in some cases ran with the wrong part of it. They ran with the news, but they didn't capture what was actually being said, so it just became another the comics. Perch says comics are fucked, and that Perch guy sounds reasonable half the time, so now they're really fucked. And then the other half used as an example to say, well, this is, that was a Daniel Calban, Calabasso, Calban. I'm not making a joke, honestly. I know it's not Calbasso, but anyway, Daniel Calban. I think I'm mispronouncing the name. Anyway, and he took to it saying, well, this is clearly a super, ultra mega CG channel full of CGs by your head CG. Now I know he means computer graphics, and that's fair. I do a lot of computer graphics. Now I suspect he meant something else when he said CG, but apparently this is a major CG channel, which is news to me. But sorry, all you live streamers out there that like to bitch about this channel. I'm your king now. You listen to me. Anyway, that fuss all aside, we've got a little bit more information. We have information you can see for yourself. So let me just lay out the case a little bit differently than I did before, and then I'm going to encourage you, to draw your own conclusions. Some of you will hear all this and go, it doesn't matter. Or he's basically taking unrelated things and using it to paint a picture that isn't really a picture. Or this is no big deal, I don't get it. It's fine. You're welcome to blow it off. But if you've been looking at comics, studying comics, if you've ever been a retailer, your ears will perk up. Okay, this is a sign. I've been in now several different retailer groups, and everybody, a lot of retailers are worried. They're worried about this. And keep in mind, if you work inside of comics, these are the people who are actually selling the comics. When the retailers are worried, that is an issue. And, I don't think that, getting Rich Johnston to write an article about how all the retailers are racist, sexist xenophobes is going to work this time. I mean, you can give it a shot, but I don't think so. I'm referring, by the way, to this event that happened at the New York City Comic-Con, where some retailers are like, yeah, we don't like this stuff that you're doing. And it got portrayed by Bleeding Cool, and Rich in particular, as being like these racist retailers. We're talking about no more black people in comics, which was absolutely not what happened. I was actually there. I did look around. I did not see the dark, foul stench of Rich Johnson anywhere present. So this was. I always maintain. I always believe that was a very intentional hit job. But what the retail, and no, I wasn't one of the retailers shouting either. Those of you who know me, I'm not a shouter kind of person. But anyway, what happened in the New York City Comic Con was that there was this I would say, bursting of the dam, and it was around relaunches. It was not around black superheroes or female superheroes or any of that kind of stuff. It was around relaunches. That's what got it going. Was that Marvel was talking about relaunching, and keep in mind this was sort of during the all new, all different, all new, mostly different, all new, but about the same kind of era, where Marvel was relaunching stuff sometimes within the same year. And that was what really got people going, regardless. I really feel like, because the news came out, and then it kind of circulated, and then suddenly this really, gross article came out saying the retailers all revolted against black people. And that was not what happened. Again, gross misrepresentation of that event. That's probably a video in and of itself. But in this case, we're talking solicitations. Now, by the way, when I did the last video, several of you pointed out, it's like, no, you're wrong. The solicitations have the same date on Newsarama as they did a year ago. And that's true and not true at the same time. The true part is, yes, the full Marvel listing came out the same. The false part is that the majority of those comics had been solicited weeks, and in one case, a month earlier. And then it was collected in the article you saw. But the comics had been pushed out much earlier than that to retailers. And so, and you can see that again for yourself if you just go to a lot of these sites and you'll see things like, here's some advance notice of some Spider Family books, and here's some advance notice of some X-Men books, and here's advance notice of the Star Wars books. And you just look at that, you're like, well, wait a minute, all the books are being solicited piecemeal, weeks and weeks in advance. Now, again, that's not terribly unusual either. They do release some books in advance, but not all of them. And in this case, they all were. That's the difference. And again, you don't trust me. You go to the site, look at the dates. You can see this stuff for yourself. It's all there. In fact, again, if you have to put your browser in multiple layers of condoms, but you can actually go to Bleeding Cool, endure their viruses that they're going to put on your computer from the massive amount of ads they have going there. And you can see the partial solicitations. Now, that in and of itself is not terribly new news, because that has happened before. They typically release a few to different sites, some to CBR, some to, various places. But this was much more. And it didn't stop for the April solicitations. It's done for May. So right now, if you actually go to Newsarama and you check that, I don't know when this video exactly will go up, but if you go there, you'll see that the Captain America Cold War solicitations are out. These are comics in May, and in some cases June, are available. Again, they're up there. You can read them now. You can also see solicitations for some of the All the Mutants books. You can see solicitations for things that are in August. Marvel has a ton of their material out between May and August already out. Retailers have received most of it. The news sites are getting a lot of it. This is what's freaking retailers.
Why is Marvel doing this? What's the significance behind solicitations landing so early? Well, the significance is that it's basically giving Marvel more time to understand the popularity and the interest in the books long before they're printed, and in some cases before they're even finished. There's only one reason they would do that, and that's to cut costs. When you send books to the printer, you typically have an order or a structure to doing it. You typically have a system or a method. You will take the books that you're most certain of, you'll tend to bulk stack them up, you'll put other books with them, you can get various breaks. There's a lot of, both from a pricing standpoint and just a general distribution standpoint. People are also playing the supply chain game where they're putting the books to the printers in cases where they want to make sure that if there is a delay somewhere down the line, their top selling books, the books that they know they have the most orders from, are getting in first and safe. There's a million more nuances like that. The only reason you slide your solicitations early is to get more information about the orders before you go to print, before you do your estimates, before you even plan your quarter. Now, talking to people inside of Marvel, Q3, Q4 their projections are being made and they're being revised. Typically a company, and Marvel being part of Disney, works this way. Disney's fiscal year happens from October 1st to September 30th. It's basically the Q4, a yearly Q4 is the fiscal Q1 at Disney, and Marvel does follow that same modeling for their finances. And what's happening is that you typically plan for the year. And this year was planned with the idea of the sales coming out of Judgment Day, AXE, and some of the other big events, Dark Web, etc. And what's occurred is that those sales were soft. And now we're getting toward the back half of the year, and we're planning next year. We're having to revise estimates. And so that's one major reason why you're seeing the solicitations drop very, very early. They're dropping early because they need to hit the numbers more precisely than they had previously. Again, and by the way, the cold-hearted accountant part of me likes that. I like the fact that they're getting a lot more precise about this. That's good. More data, better data, more accurate stuff is a good idea. However, this is a spooky sign to retailers who, in the past, when this kind of stuff's going on, we've seen books get shuffled, books get canceled, things get changed. And that worries them. It also worries them they're being asked to plan out and project much earlier. So retailer is having to now look at things like Cold War and Fall of the Mutants and some of the other big events coming down, Summer of Symbiotes. A ton of the Summer of Symbiotes information is out now. And they're basically having to make a choice on what they think they're going to sell, not 3 months in advance, but 6 months in advance. Now, granted, the final order cutoff will still come. It's not like it's all or nothing, but a lot of, again, the behavior of a lot of retailers, and remember, these are the people who are selling your books. The behavior of a lot of retailers typically is to mark down your orders, plan it out, and and get it done relatively early. There's certainly some retailers that wait to the end, but a lot of people start planning out, their stock, and especially in the summer when there's typically more dollars that have to be expended for books because there's usually an event in there, and you got two major companies both doing events. It's going to, you have to think about cash flow. Now, you could say, well, retailers should just adapt. Sure, I agree. But it's still a change, and it's a change that indicates some uncertainty in the market. It's not saying, this is a change that means Marvel is about to go out of business. I'm not saying that. One site, listened to my video and drew that away, that Marvel was, months away from declaring bankruptcy, which as a subsidiary of Disney would not happen. But okay, that's not how bankruptcy works for a company that's wholly owned by its parent. Anyway, but it is a troubling sign. It's a troubling sign because you've seen an industry that had a very, pretty consistent method for doing things shift out, and it shifted out a lot in a short period of time. Now, again, to repeat, a lot of the solicitations for May, June, July, and even August are already going out. They're going out piecemeal. And again, that's happened before, but it's happened a little bit before. Now it's happening almost across the line, particularly for the bigger books. This is just an indicator. There's a million indicators you look at. This is one. If you're an investor, you look at signs. This is a sign. Again, you could do what you want with this. You can easily discard it. I'm not going to hold it against you, but it is something to look at. Now, just again, for people thinking about the dates and thinking about what's going on, just one last piece. Remember that solicitations do get all collected up together and distributed to the sites, oftentimes by the sites themselves. There's been several instances where Marvel has not actually released to the comic news sites the full list, and they've basically made the comic news sites go off to, previews or various places to go get it. That's happened before. Usually, I can't even begin to speculate why it's happened before, but anyway, typically they get collected up together. I can tell you that several of the comic news sites, because I have friends there too, were surprised by how the early solits are coming out. Very surprised. This is a different for them as well. Now, rather than people going on Twitter and saying, "Wow, that Perch guy is full of shit," and this is fine, I don't even know what he's talking about, blah blah. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, especially people who are retailers, especially people who are comic news journals. You know what I'm talking about, and I would even wager that the creators who are going like, "No, that's not how it is." You have to be insane, because if there's one thing that a lot of creators do pay attention to, it's the solits. Why? Because they're looking for either books to jump on, or they're wanting to see their books go out and get some exact measurement on that. Creators, as I've seen, typically look pretty closely at that stuff. So anyone going like, nothing to see here, I don't know, that person is being extremely disingenuous, or dare I say, just lying. Anyway, that's a little bit more data on the subject. Again, do with it as you will. You would anyway. Of course, you're a good person. And thanks for listening.